Hey everyone, glad you're here with me today. Did you know Republican lawmakers just released a new version of what some are calling the Big Beautiful Bill? And tucked inside are a few lines that could quietly change how your benefits, taxes, and even your legal rights work. Some parts sound good on the surface, but once you look closer, there's always a twist. So today, we're talking through the top 5 hidden gotchas buried in this bill. And trust me, the last one might surprise you the most. While I talk, you'll see a screenshot of the real document on screen so you know exactly where this is coming from. Stay with me and tell me in the comments which one makes you pause the most. First, take a look at Section 713 Prohibition on Implementation of the Final Staffing Rule for Nursing Facilities. If you have a parent, a spouse, or maybe even yourself in a nursing home, listen close. There was supposed to be a new federal rule to make sure nursing homes kept enough nurses and aides on duty day and night. The idea was simple. Stop those heartbreaking situations where one overworked nurse has to juggle call lights, medications, and emergencies for a whole floor of residents alone. Families and patient advocates have pushed for stronger minimum staffing for years, arguing that more staff means fewer falls, fewer bed sores, faster help when someone needs the bathroom or has trouble breathing, and better overall care. But this section blocks that national rule from ever taking effect. So, instead of guaranteeing enough hands on deck, nursing homes can keep doing what many already do: stretch thin staff even thinner, especially on nights and weekends when state inspections rarely happen. Some owners say tighter staffing rules would force small rural homes to close because they can't hire enough workers. But critics point out that without a standard, the quality gap between well-run homes and underfunded ones can stay huge. Families then have to do extra homework, visit more often, and push staff to make sure loved ones aren't left waiting too long for help. So, while this might sound like trimming government red tape, for everyday people, it can mean you have to advocate harder, ask more questions, and sometimes hire a private caregiver on top of what the home provides if you can afford it. And not everyone can, so really think about it. Does blocking this rule protect small businesses, or does it risk leaving our most vulnerable family members with too few hands to care for them? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this one. Second, let's look at Section 711107 eligibility redeterminations. If you or someone you love relies on Medicaid for doctor visits, prescriptions, or long-term care, this part might catch you off guard. Right now, most states check your eligibility paperwork just once a year to make sure you still qualify. It's routine, and for many families, that's already stressful enough to keep up with. But under this section, states will be allowed to check twice a year instead. So every 6 months, you'd have to gather up fresh pay stubs, rent statements, and other documents all over again to prove you still qualify. And here's what worries a lot of folks. Every time there's more paperwork, there's more room for mistakes. If a letter gets lost in the mail, if a form is late, or if something small is missing, your Medicaid coverage can be cut off until the state finishes sorting it out. For seniors, people with disabilities, and caregivers already juggling appointments and bills that can mean skip medicines or postpone treatments just because of a paperwork snag. Some states argue this helps catch fraud or mistakes faster. But critics say it hits honest families the hardest. Think about people who move a lot, live in rural areas with unreliable mail, or don't have a computer or smartphone to track all this online. For them, an extra round of red tape twice a year means more stress, not more help. So doubling the checks really means doubling the chance to lose coverage by accident. Is that fair for people trying to stay healthy on a tight budget? Or is it just one more hurdle that makes basic care harder to hold on to? Let me know what you think in the comments, because I know a lot of you have been through this firsthand. Third, let's point to Section 70512, Exception in the Clean Electricity Credit section. This is where big energy companies get a quiet break. If a project puts more than 25% of its equipment on federal land with a lease signed by June 16th to 5, it gets to skip the normal phase out of tax credits. So, companies are now racing to lock up big pieces of public land before that date, sometimes with very little local input. It's not technically selling the land, but when a private company can hold onto it for decades, is it really public anymore? And here's where it gets more serious. Once that land is leased out, local communities often lose a say in how it's used, what roads are built through it, how much water gets pulled from it, or how wildlife is affected. If you live near one of these massive projects, you might see new roads, dust, or fencing blocking places you've used for hunting, hiking, or camping for generations. And because the lease can last decades, it's not a short-term thing. It changes how that area is managed for a lifetime. Some folks argue this helps us build clean energy faster, and that's true in part, but it also means profits go to big corporations, not always to local residents who live closest to the turbines or solar fields. So, while it might sound green and forward-thinking on paper, some say it's really a fast track to privatize public space without enough community voice or fair compensation. So, when you see the screenshot on your screen, remember this single line can shape what happens to big chunks of American open land for years to come. I really want to hear your take on whether this trade-off is worth it. Drop a comment below and let's talk about how you'd feel if this was your backyard or your town's open range. Fourth, we've got Section 70201 and no tax on tips. Here's something many people miss right away. This whole perk automatically ends after December 31st, 2028, so it's not a forever break. It's a short-term window that's meant to sound good for now. It says you can deduct your tips so you don't pay tax on them. But there's a hard limit. You can only deduct up to $25,000 in tips each year. And if your income goes over about $150,000 or $300,000 if you're filing jointly, you can lose this benefit altogether. On top of that, the IRS has to keep an extra close eye to make sure people aren't sneaking in other income as tips. So the paperwork must be spot on or you could face penalties. So even if you qualify, it's capped, comes with strings, and the whole thing disappears after December 31st, 2028. That's why some folks say it sounds great in headlines, but doesn't really solve anything for good. Do you think it's worth it, or is it just a quick band-aid? Drop your thoughts down below. Fifth, and this one might be the quietest surprise of all, is Section 7605, Third-Party Litigation Funding Reform. And if you ever have to sue a big company, maybe for an injury, fraud, or a denied insurance claim, and you don't have cash up front for a lawyer, a third-party funder might help. They pay your legal bills and living costs, then take a cut to us. But if you win, this section puts a new tax on that help. It says the profit the funder makes gets taxed at the top income rate plus an extra 3.8%, and half of that tax must be withheld right away before paying out the money. So what does this mean for you? This makes funding lawsuits more expensive because the funder keeps less profit after tax and upfront withholding. So fewer funders may offer money to people like you and me who don't have big savings to fight big companies in court. If you get money from a third party to help pay for your lawsuit and then you win, the government now takes a big chunk of the profit up to the top tax rate, plus that extra 3.8%. And they make sure to grab it up front. That could discourage funders from helping everyday folks take on big legal battles. It shifts power back to big corporations and insurance companies, while regular families might have to settle for less or drop a case entirely. And that's all 5 hidden gotchas sitting quietly inside the big, beautiful bill with the real sections right there on your screen. So, I'm not making it up. Some of these might help a little bit, but each one has a twist that could catch people off guard later. I really want to hear from you. Which one concerns you the most, or do you think some of these trade-offs are worth it? Drop your thoughts below because I read every single comment and our community learns so much from each other. Take care of yourselves, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.